What is going on, Tentacruit? It's your boy Billy the Squid, and today I want to talk about difficulty modifiers in video games and should Elden Ring have them? That's right, it's about that time where Elden Ring's hype is hitting the maximum, the precipice of hype, if you will. And now all the gaming journals are like, yeah, easy mode when? We need easy mode, guys. Or they'll have arguments saying that Elden Ring has solved the easy mode debate, and it's literally just stuff that you could have done in Dark Souls 1 through 3, Bloodborne, any of the FromSoftware catalog. It's just the fact that it's open world has made it so that people had this epiphany that, I don't have to fight everything? I can go and do, like, optional stuff? What? Yes, as this article here lovingly says, Elden Ring should learn from Dark Souls and include difficulty modifiers, and there is a ton of shit post journalism out there that is speaking to this sentiment, and this is the conversation we have every time FromSoftware puts out a new game. This is the same conversation where any game that has any difficulty gets first compared to Dark Souls and then says that they need an easy modifier. It's a tired topic, but one that I haven't weighed in officially on my channel, so here's my take on easy modes in FromSoftware games specifically, but in gaming overall, because I think it's a lot more nuanced than just a yes or a no, and I'm going to get into that. So first things first, why are there these two opposite forces that are trying to tear these games apart and keep them from each other? One group saying that if you don't have difficulty modifiers in a difficult game, you are excluding people from being able to enjoy your product, and that is wrong. Or on the other hand, if you like that the games are difficult and you want to keep a single solitary difficulty, you are a gatekeeping asshole that doesn't want other people to enjoy the game that you enjoy. You also get little snippets of gaming journalists that show clips of them not being able to get past like tutorial areas or first bosses and demand that I can't review this game properly without playing it, but I'm not good enough to play it. This is kind of an old meme that's went around the Cuphead era of things, but it is a legitimate thing, and this is why a lot of people, myself included, have called some mandatory easy modes gaming journalist mode, just because there just seems to be non-gamers talking about games way too often. And if you're gonna have somebody review a game, you would think that they would be somebody that is, for one, a fan of said game, and for two, somebody that is actually able to experience the game for what it is and what it is intended. And I think that is the biggest takeaway that I'm going to kind of lead with in my argument. So do I think Dark Souls, Elden Ring, Bloodborne, and all of these should have post-patches made where easy mode is implemented into the game? No. I do not think that these games need an easy mode or anything different from the difficulty option that the game neutrally gives you, or say a covenant boost like the Champion's Covenant in Dark Souls 2. I think that is the way FromSoftware has intended these games to be played, and I do not think one way or the other anybody should be questioning the difficulty of these games, whether they want them to be easier or harder, because I've heard a lot of people saying, oh yeah, Dark Souls 2 sucks only because it's too easy. That's why Dark Souls 2 is a bad game. It's just too easy. Too many people could beat it, therefore it's a bad game. I don't have this high pedestal that I can sit myself on top of. No, it is not the case. It is very much not the case. That is the way Dark Souls 2 was intended. Dark Souls 3, some people say it is too easy. But when you play Dark Souls 1, 2, and Bloodborne, and then you go into Dark Souls 3, yes, you have the skills built up to make Dark Souls 3 easy. Does that make it a bad game? No. When a neutral party comes in, it is just going to be as difficult as FromSoftware intended it to be. And I think that is the big takeaway. Let gaming companies make a game as difficult as they want it to be. I'm going to dive deeper into this as the video goes on. And if you are wanting a polarized opinion on these games, you're not going to get it from me. I am not going to give you an all games need to be difficult and all games need to be easy, or even a stance one way or the other, whether difficulty modifiers one way or the other should be mandatory for every game or no game. That is not the take I am going to give you. So if you are intent on having that, go ahead and let me know your disdain down in the comments below, and then bye-bye. So let's lead things off with why. Why does it not matter that Dark Souls games have difficulty modifiers? Why shouldn't the neutral difficulty of these games be like the highest difficulty and then just make it easier for people that want to play it, for people that want to experience Dark Souls, but maybe don't want to put the time and effort into learning the games well enough to actually be able to excel at them. What harm comes from that? Is there any harm? If you want to play on your hard difficulty, go ahead and play on it. It's not going to affect me. It's not going to affect you. And for that, I very much disagree. FromSoftware has done a beautiful thing with this game, where with no like legit multiplayer, just the invasion systems and all of that stuff, they have been able to cultivate one of the most passionate and dedicated player bases of any single player game I have ever seen. There is not a game out there that does not have a sole multiplayer function that I feel has the level of dedication that Dark Souls and FromSoftware game players have for the craft of these games. And I feel like some of this mislabels these players as gatekeepers just because of the nature of the bond that joins these players together. But I don't think gatekeeping is the accurate term I would use. Gatekeeping is when you are actively not wanting people to join their community. I don't feel like the majority, there are some, I don't feel like the majority of Dark Souls players really want people excluded from their community. But I will say there is value in having a game that makes you earn your place in a community. And I feel like the bond in the Souls community is forged from that trial and tribulation of making it so that you are a member of that community by your own skill, by your own rights. And I can tell what y'all are thinking. I'm gatekeeping right now just by saying that. No, listen to me. The reason that the Souls game players are so passionate about the games themselves is because each and every one of these players have done the exact same thing. And through that, they have a shared bond. They have forced their way through. They have most likely enjoyed the process of learning, dying, wash, rinse, repeat, until they're able to push through those walls, which is the entire point FromSoftware has made with their game design. They want to make an experience that is, yes, punishing, but is extremely rewarding once you're actually able to push through that difficulty barrier, once you're able to actually persevere and beat whatever is holding you back and let you move forward. That is a bond Souls players share, and that is something that I don't think a lot of games that have difficulty modifiers can actually have. I don't think it's possible to have that level of bond, because with difficulty modifiers, then your player base is fractured. You do not have everybody going through the same exact thing. Yes, it might be the same enemies, it might be the same bosses, but it's not the same experience. There is a very big difference as far as difficulty modifiers go on how somebody is actually able to play the game. And for these games specifically, I feel like that is a major detriment to what FromSoftware is wanting and what the whole point of the franchises are about. Bloodborne, Dark Souls, going into Elden Ring, Demon Souls. They are not meant to be a one-and-done walkthrough fest. They attach you to these games based on how much you're willing to persevere through the challenges that FromSoftware has put forward for you. Fair challenges. Challenges that can be circumvented in many different ways, mind you. And this is where the articles that Elden Ring has solved the easy mode equation because it's open world kind of make me laugh a little bit, where they're like, yeah, you can avoid things. You can go out and farm. You can do optional stuff, or you can avoid optional stuff. And that is how you are going to have an easier time in this game. The only thing that I've really seen from Elden Ring that shows that it has like single player easier content in mind is the summonable spirits, and even those I think the game is balanced around pretty well. So it just makes me laugh because these are all things you could have done in any of the prior games. It's not something that is unique to Elden Ring specifically. So that is the long and short of why I don't feel like these games need difficulty modifiers for them. But I hear you asking, if this is your stance on FromSoftware games, how are you okay with other games having difficulty modifiers? What about Skyrim? What about The Last of Us? What about Uncharted? Or any of these other games? God of War, for instance, that has a difficulty modifier. How is that a different situation from what this is? And I would highly suggest that you go back and look at the narrative format for those games compared to a Souls game and see where the points that those game developers are wanting to really push lie. They are, while a challenge if you want to do the higher difficulties, that is not the driving force for those series. That is not the driving thing that brings players to play those games. Most of those games are very heavily narratively driven, and that is something that anybody can enjoy if the tone of the game and the subject matter in the game and the writing of the game appeals to you. Yes, you can enjoy those games at an easier difficulty because it is not what the game developer is pushing in your face. And while the difficulty modifiers are there, I do not feel like removing them does anything for those games. I feel like it would be a detriment to those games because then their narrative isn't going to be available to the most people, because that is what they are wanting to push. They are wanting to push that story. The Souls games stories have always been there, but they are always there for people that actively want to look at them. They're not in-your-face stories. The way you interact with the world isn't the way that you interact with a lot of different worlds. Even open world games like Skyrim, for instance. It has difficulty modifiers, but it is intended for you to live in the world the way that you want to. The whole point of those games is more of an RP style system, whereas FromSoftware games are thriving and pushing forward that pushing through adversity mindset. So yes, I agree. Those games thrive and benefit from having a difficulty modifier. It is the necessity. And I think this is really where it all comes together in my mind, is that as a gaming community, we aren't entitled to be able to experience everything that every developer puts out. There are going to be games that aren't made for us, and we need to be okay with that. If we're not okay with that, we're being entitled little babies that are going to whine, bitch, moan, and complain about anything that isn't handcrafted for our level of skill or our level of enjoyment. Where at the end of the day, every single source of media has this caveat. Not every media is going to be enjoyed by every single person. And FromSoftware games are no exception. And to try to force a developer into making a game that appeals to the majority of people, if that's not their intention, is wrong of us as a gaming community. And this harkens back to what I said in my last video, where as a gaming community, we are predisposed to disliking things more than we like things. And that is just a fucking shame. Because if we weren't so hypercritical on every negative aspect or everything that isn't handcrafted for us, I feel like we would be a lot happier of an online community overall. We can have people that enjoy these games. We can have our people that enjoy FPSs. We can have our people that just want to sit down and have an interactive movie played to them. Those are all viable sources of enjoying video games. They all serve the same purpose, just to a different audience. And we need to be better about being okay with that being a thing. You don't need every single experience to be handcrafted and catered towards you. And if a game developer doesn't want to have a difficulty modifier added to their game, don't try to force it on them. This is the vision of the artist. This is the vision of the game creator. This is what they want the player to experience. If that experience is a narrative and they want to add difficulty modifiers so that the majority of people, whether they enjoy the gameplay or not, can enjoy the narrative if it appeals to them, that is great. But that is not the FromSoftware way. That is not what they are wanting. They are wanting to appeal to gamers in a different way and form a community in a different way. A passionate community at that. And I don't think that passion would have been there without the static difficulty. So as a closer, Elden Ring, you're doing great. You are doing the exact same thing that every other FromSoftware game has done, and I'm glad that the open world design has finally shown through that there are other ways of getting through these games than just throwing your head against the wall. The game gives you every single option to succeed, whether it be from your starter class, whether it be from being able to avoid things or actively go and look through things so that you can get leveled up higher to actually be able to persevere through these challenges that FromSoftware is pushing forward to. These have always been there, and they will always remain in a FromSoftware catalog, with the exception of maybe Sekiro. But even Sekiro had it so that the gameplay aspects were so narrowed down and fine-tuned with the mechanics that they wanted you to learn, that once you mastered that, it was all just learning enemies at that point. It didn't have the broad scope of playstyles that these games have. And I feel like that in itself makes the skill ceiling, while still extremely high, it makes it so that it's learnable. And that is a good thing. And that is something that FromSoftware has always benefited from, was a fair and learnable challenge. Last thing I want to bring up as far as difficulty modifiers go, and this is just my personal take, is if I was a game developer making a game and I wanted to add difficulty modifiers to my game, I would do it in a way where I balance the game around the tippity top of the difficulty modifier chain. Whether that's hard, very hard, whatever you have, I would balance my game around that specifically. The reasoning for that is because I feel like a lot of games that push a difficulty modifier onto players, and they want the intended experience to be that normal. And I think that's fine. I think having normal be your intended experience is an okay thing to aim for. But I've seen it too many times where a game's harder difficulties are hard for the wrong reasons. They either make it so that enemies are spongy, tanky, they take way too long to dispatch, and that takes the fun away from me. They either do that, or they have such high damage where you're getting one shot. And there's not a lot of being able to learn in a one-shot mechanic, unless it is a gimmick mechanic specifically, such as Dante Must Die mode in the Devil May Cry games, or stuff along that. Those gimmick modes, those are fine. Those, I don't feel like you should balance the game around at a base level. But I do feel like the hardest difficulty is where you should start with your balancing and then bring the gameplay down with the easier difficulties from there. That way, the people that want to experience your game at the hardest difficulty have the most fair and fun experience that doesn't take them, the difficulty being there because it's a 20-minute boss fight instead of a 5-minute boss fight, and if they make one mistake, they get one shot. I don't think that's really a fun way to balance a game, but this is just my take. This is just kind of me freestyling off at the end. If I were to do game development, that's how I would build my games. And this being my way is okay, because for one, I'm never going to have the tech know-how to make a game myself. I just don't have it in me. And for two, it is okay for a developer to have their own vision, their own reasoning for why they want to do things. But I'm not going to force that onto any other developer. This is just my take on how I would balance a game and how I've seen other games that have difficulty modifiers falter in the past. But this is the end of my easy mode debate. Let me know what y'all think down in the comments below. It is the returning cycle, just like in a FromSoftware game. The cycle continues. The cycle of the easy mode debate will always continue. It will never end until one side dies completely, and I don't see that happening, because luckily for us as gamers, we tend to disregard gaming journalism for the very most part, and I think that is a very good thing. And for the most part, even though we do have an entitlement problem, I feel like we can appreciate game developers for what they do, at least for the most part. That is slowly starting to slip away from what I've seen, but I would like to think that we can keep it civil, that we can keep the vision that a developer has and a producer has in mind when we are critiquing games based on their difficulty or whatnot. It is not the right for us to assume that every game is going to be built for us. But that is the end of the video. Thank you all for watching, Tenant Crew. Like I said, if you had anything else that you want to say, let me know down in the comments below. Until then, much love. Bye-bye.